Live. Everywhere. On netrootsradio.com. David Waldman. Kagro. In the morning. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How you doing? It is Monday, February 2nd. That's Groundhog Day, yes. February 2nd, 2026. And I guess it's going to be February 2nd, 2026 for the next couple of days. I suppose I probably should have thought to rerun my Friday morning post instead of spending any time working on my February 2nd post. But I'm not certain the joke would have come through. And anyway, it's, I don't know what I think the news is 6 more weeks of winter. But, I mean, isn't it always kind of... I don't even remember the last time they didn't say it was going to be 6 more weeks of winter. And they should, because there will be 6 more weeks of winter. And really, at this point, telling people it was going to be an early spring would... I don't know if it would be believable. I don't know if it would go over. It's still pretty cold. I don't know how it is in Connecticut, but we will find out. And I don't know. I guess we'll wait until the lingering music ends before we check in. But it's cold here. We didn't get any more snow from the second storm that dumped snow all over the Carolinas. And I guess we could check in on how they're doing with that. It's still cold and icy in Minnesota, as you're well aware. I have some very interesting, I guess, essays from inside Minneapolis. An interesting one that was framed as we probably ought to be thinking about this now. I mean, we've never stopped thinking about our friends in Minneapolis and Minnesota and wider and elsewhere who are dealing with the ICE occupation, essentially. But we've said that and used those terms, but this really puts it in the terms we ought to be thinking about, and makes a great case for why this is more like a siege than anything else. It's really, I think I've seen this hinted at, but we haven't really discussed. It's really, obviously, I think we all would have figured it was happening. It's choking off economic activity in a very big way in Minneapolis. And maybe that was something, I don't know if it was quite as pronounced in the other cities, just because the population of the other cities was a lot larger. And it was easier to absorb the occupation force at the time. We spoke about that right at the beginning. But perhaps I'm sure we'll be checking back on that as well. I don't know if you ever heard of Jeffrey Epstein, but he's back in the news as well, though he is dead. But back in the news and in a big way. And all right, well, we'll check in with all of that and more from around the country, because even though today is not a Wednesday, we nonetheless apparently have got election news, which is amazing. And because it's newsy news and we might not be woken up yet, we'll roll the newsreel stuff. And, of course, right, that's a groundhog, everybody. I don't know, I bet you didn't know that. All right, Greg Dworkin, how you doing? How cold Beautiful. Is it where you are?
So it's 17. It was in double figures when I woke up, so that's much warmer than the weekend when it was 2 or -1, yes. And feels like Minnesota.
Yeah.
You know, they have,
really what it feels like there is incredible.
You know, when they do the weather, they're always going wind chill factor. It makes it feel, you know, da-da-da-da.
They changed over
they
at
say
some
in Connecticut is, you know, it's 14 degrees, but with the wind chill, it feels like Minneapolis.
Yeah. Somewhere along the line, the Weather Channel switched over from wind chill to feels like, which makes more sense, I guess, but now I feel like it's less scientific.
Yeah, well, I feel like it's wind chill.
Yeah, all right, well, that's true. And I guess, are there other factors that contribute to it besides wind?
Yeah, whether or not you go out wet right after a shower, for example.
All right, well, don't do that.
Sure, there's plenty of other factors. Well,
I guess so. I figured dryness.
Like, you know, take a shower and go to work. Well, that doesn't always work.
Yeah, right. Well, all right. Anyway, yeah. Also, sometimes you prefer to shower after. Depends what kind of work you do.
Well, yeah, or during if it's like really
right.
wet. But,
that's
you know,
true.
Just
right.
if you go out wet in cold weather, it's not going to work so well. You got to come in with icicles in your nose.
When do you shower if your job is installing walk-in showers? You should have
Always.
asked. Well, I guess so. Right. I'm testing it.
Yeah, I got to test it. Well,
you didn't have to, take off your. All right. Well, anyway, that part doesn't happen. But unless it's Jeffrey Epstein's house,
Pundit
maybe.
Roundup,
Yes.
Getting back to why you have a radio show, just to remind you.
What am I doing? Where am I? Am I president?
Am I running with Ross Perot? What's going on here? Abbreviated Pundit Roundup, alienating the public has a strong effect on the ballot. We're going to talk about that. But I want to start with magic stuff in the house. So maybe we'll do the ballot first, because that sort of matters. Right? There's two special elections in Texas that happen on a Saturday.
Why?
So even though this is Monday and not Wednesday, we're going to talk about, hey, there must have been an election somewhere.
Yeah.
Let's talk about
Don't we want that? I mean, we've been thinking about it. Saturday is a good day for it. Many people are off.
But it was cold in Texas, and a lot of people didn't turn out.
Did Ted Cruz leave? How cold was it?
It was cold enough for Ted Cruz to go to Cancun. That's how cold it was.
Okay. Just checking.
So there was a special election in Texas. And this particular district is interesting. First of all, it's very large, fairly populous. It's the Fort Worth area. Mm-hmm. And it was
How much
cold,
is that worth?
so that affected turnout. But here's a local and a national view of what happened. And what happened is that this is a Trump plus 17 area.
Yeah, it's plus 17 where you are. That's the temperature.
Yeah, and even though this was a state Senate race, the state Senate size of the district is fairly large, got 1 million people.
Oh.
And
all right.
This Trump plus 17 voting area went for the Democrat 57-43.
This is happening this is like the 9th race we've been hearing about.
But this particular one was really, truly unexpected.
All right. Awesome.
So here's the Texas Tribune. Democrat Taylor Rehmet wins solidly red Texas Senate seat in a stunning special election upset. Now, the person who was in here, a Republican, went to become the acting comptroller for the state. That's why the seat was open.
I see.
And the Texas Tribune subheader says, with ballots tallied from all but a handful of voting centers, Rehmet has 57% of the vote, besting the 43 for his GOP opponent, Leigh Wambsganns, W-A-M-B-S-G-A-N-S-S, Wambsganns, who had a massive spending advantage. Now, Leigh Wambsganns, the Republican, is a book burner.
Well, it's cold. I understand.
Yeah, it is cold, but she is associated with a campaign to try to put MAGA Christian nationalist book burners on local school boards.
Oh, yeah.
And when I read that, I thought, sounds like Loudoun County. And it turned out that she had a very, very brief success at it. And then people saw what they were actually doing and woke up.
Oh.
Which
All
is
right.
different than woke. And then they said,
this is different.
My goodness,
good. Yeah.
This is bad. And then voted him out the next round. That happened all over the country.
Yeah, well.
So she's the person associated with this. And the fact that she lost has a lot to do with that. For example, this is a Republican, Ross Hunt, who runs Hunt Research.
Okay.
But he is
Mike's brother.
Republican, which you can tell from his comments. Republicans did not lose the Texas Senate District 9, SD9 runoff because of low GOP turnout. They lost because almost all the independents and some of the Republicans voted for Democrats. Of those who voted in the Texas runoff, 50% plus were GOP primary voters. And only 35% were Democrats or in those lines. Now, there's no specific, I'm signing up to be a Democrat or a Republican in Texas. What happens is the state assigns you the party based on which primary you voted for last. So talk about party switchers and swing voters. If the Democrats don't run any candidates, politically sophisticated and active people will vote in the Republican primary for the least worst Republican.
Yeah, well,
and therefore will be characterized as Republicans.
I see. Now you can vote for the worst Republican and say that person will be so crazy the Republicans won't vote for them in the general.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is you can't always use party ID to predict who's going to vote. No,
that's a totally different point. I thought that they would divide you into parties depending on whether you fired your celebratory gunfire up or down, depending, like Yosemite Sam. If you're into the ground, you're a Democrat, and into the air where you could harm other people.
Was turnout lower than the first round, Ross Hunt says. Yeah, 95,000 voters as opposed to 119,000 voters, and probably less than a third what we'll see in the fall. But the fall electorate is projected to be at least as GOP as this one, and with more independents and independents voting for the Democrat, that's the problem. And then he goes on to say, the slump in GOP turnout wasn't good. If 63% of Republicans had come back, that would have netted us another 3,000 votes. That's why I'm saying he's a Republican.
Yeah, right. Okay.
But Dem turnout wasn't exactly surging either. Over 50,000 Democrat primary voters stayed home. New voters made up 19% of Democrats who voted, 16% of Republicans, fairly even. Why didn't Democrats do better on turnout? It's Texas. Some of the reason has to be the Democratic Party still has a terrible image in Texas and nationally. Democrats still aren't excited about being Democrats. But at the end of the day, the explanation for what happened last night was not that Democrats won because of increased Democratic enthusiasm.
Ooh. Well, okay. I'm not on that page yet, but okay, I will be
Rather, it was that Republicans lost it because of the failure to persuade swing Republicans and right-leaning independents. Or to put another way, they lost all the Hispanics and Latinos in that area.
Okay. Well,
you lose. That's day, right. Sir.
And ma'am, in this case.
Right. Dan Patrick, the Senate's most powerful presiding officer, had raised alarm bells about the race and urged Republicans to turn out, as did Trump, who posted 3 separate get-out-the-vote messages on social media in the 48 hours preceding the election. This will be a short-lived win. A first-time candidate who will serve out the roughly 11 months remaining for Kelly Hancock, who vacated the seat to become Texas acting comptroller. But the outcome serves as a warning shot for Republicans that will likely embolden Democrats as they angle for other red-leaning seats across Texas and the country in November.
Yeah.
Ken Martin said, it's a big win for us. And the loss was a major setback for Wambsganns, a conservative activist whose advocacy in recent years helped make Tarrant County, half of which is covered by this district, a testing ground for socially conservative politics.
Yeah, Tarrant County comes up a lot. It's almost as crucial as Waukesha sometimes,
it's
just
big.
In terms of...
Long active in GOP circles, Wambsganns rose to prominence in 2022 when she helped the GOP fill North Texas school boards with candidates who held Christian conservative views. The movement's success resulted in an explosion across the country of book bans, rewriting a curricula, and a thinner line separating church and state. One of the things you have to appreciate is that Texas has an enormously large school system.
Yes.
Why does this matter?
That.
I'll tell you 2 ways it matters.
Okay.
It's hard to fund schools because it's so expensive because there's so many kids. It's a very young state relative to, let's say, Maine. It's not only large, it leans young, and so funding things that help kids is expensive, and that helps GOP candidates say, you guys spend too much money. That's one thing. Another thing is that because it's so large, it sways the publishers of books with their market to rewrite conservative textbooks because the Texas market is so big. So is California. They generally balance each other. But there's definitely a push-pull there in regard to the size. So it's important that that's the case. But you have so much experience with Loudoun County, not just what happened, but what people think happened, which isn't the same thing. These things matter in the perception of the public. And there was a commenter on Twitter when this fellow was
CBS News editor.
Yeah, when Ross Hunt was posting some of the stuff that happened here. One of the commenters said, I'm from around here, and you just can't appreciate how much people are really sick and tired of the school board garbage.
All right. Yeah.
So that had a lot to do with the race. I'm just saying.
I think I can certainly sympathize. I feel like we've had that. I've certainly had that feeling and seen it around here. That conservative Republicans definitely have reached a breaking point and get annoyed with it.
They've overreached a breaking point.
Yes,
That's the word of the week.
I guess so. Overreach. That was the word of last week. I guess it'll remain this week. They continue to overreach. But yes, conservative Republicans who say, look, it's starting to get in the way of our schools being considered normal, and that's not good. Like, I have this conservative idea of what normal is, but we've gone past that, and we have, people who are going to think that our college-bound high school seniors who are well-rounded kids and got a good education, and we paid enough for it in taxes, say the conservatives, they're going to think they come from, witch hunting towns. This is no good.
Well,
we can't have this. Well,
they are. Until you stop doing what you're doing.
The hell up. What the hell are you talking about? Yes. Well, so we stopped. And so will, I guess, is Tarrant County, Texas. Tarrant County, I believe, is where the former Republican chair turned into the guy with the jester hat and the Trump is a child rapist sign last time around. Do you remember that guy?
Yeah,
it was something of a meme online.
There's like 50,000 of them, so it's hard to pick
and he was the one who was also Tarrant County Republican chair. I think shortly before he showed up with that sign. I think they were probably going to get rid of him after the sign, but he was kind of right, and he knew it, and it was weird that a Republican would come out and say so in 2016, 17, whenever he did it.
Yep.
But that's not the big story of the day, if you're interested.
Yeah. So Aaron Blake is one of the rats that left the Washington Post sinking ship, and he's now at CNN.
Tossed off the ship, or just...
No, I think he left.
Okay, good for you.
I think he saw where the ship was going and said, you know what, not me.
It's a good idea.
Why Democrats upset in a Texas state Senate race is a big deal. Mm-hmm. The hits keep coming for Republicans ahead of the 2026 midterm election, but even amid a series of panic-inspiring results for the GOP, this is a new outcome in Texas, and it really stands out. Democrat Taylor Rehmet pulled an upset in a Fort Worth area district, beating Republican Leigh Wambsganns 57-43 in a runoff election in a solidly Republican district. Let's break down what's going on here. It's one of the biggest upsets on record. They've been overperforming in special elections by big margins, but Texas is one of the biggest swings to date. While Trump won the district by about 17 points in 2024, the Democrat held a 14-point lead with nearly all the vote. That's roughly 31-point difference. If you want to judge it by the last time they voted, the Republicans won by 20. This is a 34-point swing. I mean, any way you do it, it's big.
Yeah.
By way of comparison, the big Democratic overperformances that got all the news are basically high teens, low 20s.
Okay.
This is in the 30s.
Yeah.
Also, this will be the first time a Democrat has represented the northern part of Tarrant County in the state Senate since the early 80s. Many of the biggest overperformances in special elections came in tiny state legislatures, but this one's big. There are fewer state Senate districts than congressional districts in Texas, so the district is home to nearly 1 million people. Trump got involved. It didn't work.
Yes.
The fundraising was astonishing for the Republican. And then the upstate is one thing. Where it happened is another. Tarrant County is generally thought to be a major bellwether county, not just in Texas, but nationally. It's home to major defense contractors, an epicenter of Christian nationalism, which is why the book burning. It has been, they call it book banning, but same thing. it has been strongly Republican for decades
at this point,
and was a hotbed of Tea Party activism during former President Obama's term. But it's also become more competitive. If there's a place where Democrats would really like to make gains, it's places like this, making a U.S. Senate race in Texas not unthinkable. All hill to climb, but nonetheless.
Yeah.
Now, here are all the caveats that should make Democrats not feel so good.
Gotta have those.
It was cold, it was bad turnout, yada yada. But then, local politics. Wambsganns is a longtime activist who played a significant role in a social conservative push to take control of local school boards earlier this decade, and it's evidence that it, wait for it, went too far.
Overreach.
for voters who replaced a number of the partisans with more moderate members in later elections. It's possible she alienated some moderate voters and even some Republicans who the Democrat aimed to flip. So that's what happened.
Yeah.
And as Joe Biden might say, that was a BFD.
Yes. If I might add the observation I have here for you from Mike Hicksonbaugh, who is he, I don't know, Baugh? Mike Hicksonbaugh is the NBC News senior reporter, I guess, was watching this thing and points out that, what's her name? Leigh Wambsganns. That's a tough one. I don't know. But that Leigh Wambsganns, as he says, devoted her professional life to Trump and his movement. And then on Friday, he seemed to reward her loyalty by endorsing her campaign for Texas Senate. But then after she lost this safe, what should be a safe GOP Gops seat by double digits, Trump says he's never heard of her. I have audio on that, too, from Aaron Rupar. But, yeah, basically saying, never heard of her before. I don't know what's happening here. So
it's all local. It's a local election. Point. I'm not involved. I'm not on the ballot.
I'm not on the ballot.
Me.
Right. Never who, where. He went and endorsed her. And then, of course, he runs around and says, everybody I endorse wins. I have a 100% record. And then he loses and said, I don't know. But it was a good point, right? People who have actually jumped on the Trump train early and dedicated their lives and bet everything on being a Trumper are finding themselves, one, being crushed because they're Trumpers, and two, abandoned by Trump because that's who he is.
Why do you people keep talking about these polls? What difference does polling make?
Yeah.
Well,
do I say that?
To quote Don Rickles, because elections, you hockey puck. That's why.
Okay. Yes. Right. I mean, this is what it comes down to. And, right, all the things that, I guess if you think Trump has some kind of special magic, it's definitely worth pointing out. Yeah, he's lying about his special magic, and everybody can see
everything. He lies about everything.
Right, sure.
I withdrew my memory of who she was, therefore this doesn't count.
Yes.
I mean, when you are as sick as he is, when you are so much of a malignant narcissist that everything has to be about you, that is literally how you think.
That is correct. And what a day for him.
Now,
not only that, but
that was one of two special elections in Texas.
Right, a very confusing
I don't even
situation.
remember who was running in the other. It didn't matter. It was one Democrat against another. This was Alcee Hastings' district?
No, he was from Florida.
Is that right?
Alcee Hastings was from Florida. This is a different person.
Person who died. Or something. Something happened.
Yes.
Sylvester
Stallone. The cat?
I don't know. I can't remember.
Am I wrong?
The reason I haven't been paying attention to it, not that it's not important, and the voters, of course, need to be
I have an article.
They haven't been represented for almost a year because Greg Abbott put off the election.
Yeah,
one Democrat ran against another. One of the Democrats won and then was sworn in, and that makes Mike Johnson's majority in the House right now until Marjorie Taylor Greene's special election replacement happens in March in Georgia. Right now,
she's going to run as
Mike
a Democrat.
Johnson has a one-vote lead.
Yeah, not enough for him ever. I mean, 5 was not enough for him ever. I guess has the guy couldn't have been sworn in yet. They haven't been back in the House.
He was sworn in yesterday.
He was? How did? All right, well, send me that because I'd like to see it because I thought the House was not in. It was funny, given that how long it took, of course, to swear in Adelita Grijalva. Oh, well, we can't because we're not in session. Well, guess what happened yesterday? They weren't in session. So I don't know, maybe they had a pro forma session, which just goes to show that they could have done it at any time. And why isn't that a huge headline if that's the case? I'd like to see the Sunday article. It may be that they said, well, he'll be sworn in as soon as he gets there on Monday or tomorrow. Usually I would expect he'd be sworn in, the first weekday that they're back in session. But okay. I'd love to see that one. It was very confusing all weekend as I followed these two very positive outcomes, and they talked about the districts, and I was like, well, I don't understand which one is which again, and I never heard any of the people. So, but it took me a while to figure out which race was which. And then I said, I don't know, we want them both. Hooray! So it doesn't change the balance of power yet, but it makes it precarious and close. And I got to tell you, Marjorie Taylor Greene, I don't know, she's been running around like a woke progressive or something for the last week. She's not. Don't vote for her if she said she's a Democrat. Forget it. She's crazy. All the caveats you need. but she's really off her leash there. So good, fine. I love that it will be creating problems, and that I guess like the SNL skit that everybody was talking about from last night. One MAGA mom who says, I think Donald Trump might be kind of full of it. What? No. Yeah. All right. Well, I'm going to look up where I put aside
I'm
these.
I'm trying to find where it said he's
our
running.
winner.
I saw that go by. I know he's going to fill the remainder of the term, and it was
a person that we
Christian
really
Menefee
liked.
is
Yes,
his name.
that's right. I think that's
it was Sylvester
a Pokemon.
Turner who died.
Sylvester.
Former Houston mayor.
Ha! It was true. I was like, that can't be his name. Who's named Sylvester? And I know there are a couple
Greg
Sylvesters.
Abbott didn't schedule the first round of voting until
Congress.
November. Menefee and Edwards were the top vote getters in a 16-candidate all-party primary. No candidate won a majority of the vote, so it was a runoff between two Democrats.
Yes.
And he'll fill the remainder of the term. It doesn't say specifically swearing in.
Okay.
I saw that online, but then again,
I think,
you got to have it verified.
Right, true. If it's online, it's got to be false, I guess, basically. So, yeah, it would surprise me if they had done that, although if they did, it would be a great story. I'm going to look up the history of Sylvesters in Congress, if I can, and just share that with everybody. Wasn't there another one? I do feel like there was another one recently, or maybe he's even still there. It might be two Sylvesters in the House. Well, there were. Sylvester Reyes, wasn't he? Or maybe he's gone now. All right. But I will check it all out and be back in 2 minutes for the important Sylvester update. The cat, the cartoon cat.
Hi, I'm Scott Anderson, the guy that writes the daily summary for this show, Kagro in the Morning. Thank you to everyone that supports this show. Many of you send donations through PayPal, Patreon, Square Cash, Radio Public, and so on. Some of you write your own essays and send them in, or read articles with your own commentary. We appreciate it. Now, some of you are listening to this and thinking, I'd like to help, but isn't there something I could do that wouldn't require money or effort? Why, yes, there is. You can just like us. On Daily Kos, they call it the recommend button. YouTube has a thumbs up. There are hearts and likes and love buttons. Tap our love button. Tap our love button every day. Share our shows and summaries on Facebook and Twitter, YouTube and iTunes, Stitcher and Amazon. Most of these places allow you to write a review, so a sentence or two would be great. Recommend us to social media, or tell your friends to listen to the show. You aren't just helping us, you're helping them find their new favorite thing to listen to. You could change the world. So thank you in advance from me and everybody else in the world.
So why isn't he in Congress?
I don't know. And why are we back on the air? I wanted to stay off the air. And hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Chatter Behind the Scenes show. We're talking about the other Sylvester from Texas. I don't know. I'm old and I remember these guys. Silvestre because Spanish, and a member of Congress for the 16th District of Texas for 16 years or so.
But when did he leave? Didn't he leave in
2013?
2011? Yeah, so this is a different guy.
Yes. It is a different guy, but I don't know how many Sylvesters.
But we're doing Sylvesters
from Texas. Yeah,
if you're a Sylvester from Texas, you're getting a mention.
Right, absolutely. I'm trying not to leave anybody out. He was chairman of the House Intelligence Committee from 2007 to 2011, and a number of other things. And he's still running around. He's still out there, 80-something years, 81 years of age. And hopefully healthy and hale, and staying warm. If he's in Texas, he may have moved to Florida. I don't know.
Sylvester Turner,
yes,
is the guy that died.
Right. Well, he's not doing as well as Sylvester
a former
Reyes.
Houston mayor, died in March of 2025. So that's who he's replacing.
Right.
Sylvester
Well, that's
Reyes,
half of the Sylvesters dead.
Yeah. So that's just to get your Sylvester straight.
Yes.
In any case, that leads to Mike Johnson's razor-thin majority. So this is Politico Playbook this morning.
Oh, side note, Sylvester Reyes worked for the U.S. Border Patrol for 26 years.
So he knows.
Yeah, he might have something to say. I'd like to talk to that guy now.
Right.
And I can because he's alive.
Politico starts its playbook today with pray for Mike Johnson. Let's be clear. The path ahead for government funding looks pretty rocky. The House returns today after a week's break with a mess. A federal government and partial shutdown, both parties squabbling internally. Not really, just one. And with one another, and a chamber as cleaved down the middle as it's ever been. That's true, because it's almost even. It's 2018 to 2014.
Yes.
So one vote leaves, and then it's 217 to 215.
Yes.
2 votes leave, and this is assuming everybody shows up, which isn't always the case.
Never.
Then you get 216 to 216, and there's no president, vice president, somebody showing up, riding in on a white horse to break the tie. It's not how it works in the House.
You think that's not how it works? Yeah, that's how it really does. That's how it really works. Although honestly, I could see J.D. Vance busting in and saying he has a vote. And I swear to God, I do.
And who's going to stop me?
Right, exactly.
Right. So we still have an awful lot of hoops to jump through before the thing is done. Well, that's true, because we have to have you continue to read us. But the fact of the matter is, Johnson's got to get this thing through. He insists, Mike Johnson does, that he can get the Senate-approved funding plan approved through this afternoon's Rules Committee, unscathed. Despite murmurings from Hannibal and Luna that they plan to piggyback legislation with ideas of their own. Let's see how that goes. 4 o'clock.
Oh, man. All right. Well, I don't know how many more abortion things they can put in, but I guess they could give it a shot. Unless she's
the House
doing
rules will also deal with this week's
Epstein.
floor vote censuring Bill and Hillary Clinton for being associated with the Epstein files.
That's who they're going to pick out of this? Okay.
Yeah. Math ain't math. Well, also, they wanted Bill to come in and testify. He said, go take a hike. And that's what ostensibly the censure is for.
I see. That's not
said the committee chairs who all took a hike when they were subpoenaed.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's...
It's complicated, as they like to say. But the math ain't mathing, says Politico. With Hakeem Jeffries' House Democrats refusing to pitch in, Johnson not only needs a good result out of rules, but he also needs basically every member of his caucus to back the funding package on the floor of the House. And his math is only getting harder. This afternoon, the swearing in of Texas Democrat Christian Menifee will cut Johnson's margin of error to just a single vote. That's where I saw that he was swearing in. It wasn't yesterday. It's today. It's this afternoon.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Even if Johnson gets it done, the floor vote merely starts the clock on a 2-week negotiation with Democrats to agree to major reforms to ICE. And in case you missed it, GOP leaders and rank and file were crystal clear yesterday that 2 central Democratic demands, federal agents stop covering their faces and they obtain judicial warrants, are unacceptable.
I did see I think I would say the second dumbest Republican senator on TV, Ron Johnson, yesterday, saying in answer to
Tommy Tuberville's the dumbest.
Yes, that's about how I rank him.
Ron Johnson lost his crown.
Yeah, well, he fell down and broke his crown, and Tommy came tumbling after. But he did get that. He did pull it away. He's definitely dumber. But Johnson, with a strong attempt at a comeback on CNN, I guess, with Dana Bash, I think I saw. But I saw a clip circulating. She says, essentially, but the Democrats are demanding, or they want something fairly reasonable. And he says, no. They want judicial warrants for every arrest. And that is crazy. That is unacceptable. That's so radical. Of course, the Democrats want, we want judicial warrants for every arrest. Yeah, we've always kind of had that.
You said you were arresting criminals. What's the problem?
Right. Yeah. Shouldn't be an issue. You can get an indictment for Don Lemon. Surely you can get an indictment for the worst of the worst. No.
So, given that Ron Johnson said that, Senate Majority Leader John Thune already said he thinks the 2-week deadline will need to be extended again and again, and maybe again after that.
Yeah, they'll be kicking that can for quite a while.
Which means ICE and immigration more generally are not falling off the radar anytime soon. And the next part of the show, the next segment I have, is all about how Trump's ratings are in decline. So this ain't helping any.
He's got terrible ratings. They should cancel him.
Yeah.
No one's watching.
Right. So Janet Napolitano says Tom Homan really should announce an open investigation as if they're normal people. The whole funny thing, the whole conceit of, if this were normal, this is what I would advise Tom Homan to do. If this were normal, this would be what I would advise Kristi Noem or Stephen Miller or Donald Trump to do. And when you start mentoring Miller and Trump, you realize, of course, it's not normal. No. Why are you even going there? That's just normalizing it.
Yeah. Right. If this was normal, that is what you are saying. You're trying to normalize it. Stop.
Janet Napolitano says what we have mentioned many times. Everybody's conflating this as ICE, but it's Border Patrol with the bigger presence. Interestingly, the names of the Border Patrol agents who shot Alex Pretty were released over the weekend.
Yes. They usually don't do that, or they try not to.
And they have extensive Border Patrol experience. So the idea that Border Patrol is putting people in here without training and that's why they're shooting people isn't true. Firstly, it's Border Patrol in that ICE.
The causation is not true.
Secondly, they have plenty of training, and they use that training to shoot him in the back. Times.
Border Patrol's been a very troubled agency for a long time, which would make it interesting to talk to Silvestre Reyes, the live one. But it's the causation is not true. But are they putting people on? That may be ICE. The people they are putting some very inexperienced people on the streets, but I guess they aren't yet confident enough to start shooting people, which I guess is terrific. But they also are shooting people with what should be very experienced agents. And it is interesting, too, that they fought for so long and they had, and what's her name? Kristi Noem was crying practically on television. Oh, my God, you're doxing Jonathan Ross, I believe, in his role in Renee Good's shooting. And now these two names are out. And by the way, the two names are very obviously Latino.
Yeah, and Mike Madrid, the Latino consultant, said, now I know why they were wearing masks.
Yes.
If their moms found out what they're up to.
Exactly. Right. And I think that's largely the case. And I think it's also why they take teams from the Texas border area and move them to Minneapolis. I don't think a mask would help you. If you were running around Corpus Christi, where you're from, people would say, I know you. You can't hide from me. But in Minneapolis, it works. But also interesting, no crying about having doxed the two Latinos. That they don't care about. The white guy, that's doxing. The Latinos, we hired these guys as capos to begin with. Who cares? We were planning on deporting them and their families last. That was the whole conceit of it. But, we can move it up now. We'll get another guy. And I think they treated them as disposable from the beginning. Yes.
I'm going to read you a quote from one of America's all-time great writers, authors, James Baldwin.
All right.
Comes from Notes of a Native Son, and he says, and I quote, in Harlem, Negro policemen are feared more than whites, for they have more to prove and fewer ways to prove it, end quote.
Man, that's an insight for you. Yes, and probably largely the same with southern Texas border region Latino agents.
I'm just saying, it's an interesting quote that may, in fact, apply here. I don't know their whole history.
Think so.
I don't know what they're about, but
that's a good caution.
And so, the idea this is going away, it's not going away. This is VoteHub on Twitter. Donald Trump's net favorability is lower than ever in his second term, with unfavorables in particular rising after a month of politically unpopular setbacks. Unfavorable now at 54.9, favorable 42.2. That's an aggregate. And remember, aggregates are built up with Republican polling firms who are designed to put their finger on the scale for Donald Trump.
Right. Well, which finger?
Between trying to hide it in polls and seeing what happens in special elections. Well, let's just see what happened in Texas Saturday. Look at that.
Right. Well, okay, so aggregates tend to buoy him a little more than it should be, and it's still the worst. But he is breaking records. That's the important point.
John Favreau says around two-thirds of the country doesn't support ICE, doesn't think it's making us safer, doesn't think the killings of Alex Pretty and Renee Good were justified. It's dragging down Trump's approval, and now Republicans are seeing 30-plus point swings against them in Texas. The smug MAGA types on this platform, X, have let the algorithm blind them to the nationwide revulsion towards the government's lawless thuggery.
Ooh. Well, he's a speechwriter, right? That was nice.
Right. Well,
Well done.
And as a commenter pointed out, 90% of Republicans may support Trump, but that's 30% of the population.
Yeah. Well, good. Isolate them and make them unhappy.
G. Elliot Morris says there's very likely going to be a blue wave in November 2026. Trump will do what he can to disturb the election, stop Republicans from losing the House. It probably won't work, but the probability of a tail outcome, which is to say something that's unlikely but high risk, is worrisome, and the attempt really is the story. That's why we have stories about what happened in Fulton County with Trump impounding the 2020 election stuff.
Yes.
But that's not going to help him win, and it's not going to convince anybody. People who think that was a good idea are already, forget them.
Okay.
They're lost.
I don't.
And so it's not going to convince anybody else. This is public policy polling. Independents moving strongly against Trump and GOP. Independents tend to decide elections, and that's why we always focus on the persuadables. Yeah, they're only 5%, but generally speaking, that's enough to win or lose elections in this country.
Mm-hmm.
Independents tend to decide, except in Texas where you win by 16 points. Independents tend to decide elections, and PPP's latest national poll finds Trump and Republicans are in a lot of trouble. 29% approval to 63% who disapprove among independents. Only 64% of the independents who voted for Trump are still happy with the job he's doing, and that's brought his overall approval with people who voted for him down to 80%. Not 90%, 80%. 10%'s a big difference.
Yeah.
A BFD.
The people who voted for him.
Yeah.
Wow,
This
okay.
is the weakest we've seen him with the base. Trump's fall with independent voters is having an impact on the outlook for this fall. Usually independents are pretty divided with just a small lean, but not this time. Democrats lead the generic congressional battle among independents 51-30.
Ooh, okay. That's
Thanks to
almost
those
20.
independent voters, Democrats have a 48-41 generic ballot lead, and there's signs within the numbers. Things will get worse among the folks who are undecided. Only 22% approve of the job Trump is doing. The 56% who disapprove. Generally, things break against the party in power. There's nothing in the numbers that suggests otherwise.
Okay.
Let's put it that way.
All right. I'm willing to accept that as a good summary of the numbers.
Yep. So today, Fulton County says Joyce Vance. Tomorrow, we don't know. The New York Times puts it like this. The move harnesses the investigative power of the Justice Department and FBI behind baseless claims by Mr. Trump and his supporters that the 2020 election was stolen. State and local officials and election experts have repeatedly refuted those assertions. So have the courts. Why is it important that the courts do it? Because in the courts, you are providing evidence.
Yes. And their big issue so far has been that they are not providing evidence.
Yeah,
that's how they're losing.
That's why those lawsuits in court are so important.
Yeah.
So
or maybe they are presenting evidence. It's just bad
agents
evidence.
to search for and seize, quote, all physical ballots from the 2020 general election, as well as ballot images produced by scanning ballots, voter rolls from that year, and tabulator tapes.
Yes.
And identify the crimes agents are looking for, evidence of Title 52 USC 20701 and 20511. The first charge is a misdemeanor record retention crime. The second is a multi-component felony, the pertinent part of which is most likely the section that makes it a crime if a person, including an election official who is in any election for federal office, knowingly and willfully deprives, defrauds, or attempts to deprive or defraud the residents of a state of a fair and impartially conducted election.
I mean, if that happens, let me know.
If it happens, it's a crime.
And by the way, if Donald Trump then moves to seize the actual voting machines, let's say almost immediately in advance of the midterm elections, that would be a violation of that, except he'd be exempt from it because presidents are immune from everything.
Right.
But, whatever.
She notes the Trump administration has amassed quite a record for lying to and deceiving courts and not following their orders. It would be irresponsible to avoid hard questions about their work product given what's taken place during the last year. So in other words, if Trump says something, don't believe it.
You should not. By the way, I mean, what I found interesting was that they said, well, we're charging you with the willful destruction of and a failure to retain election records. And to prove it, we're seizing from you those election records and putting them in boxes and putting them on a truck to prove that you didn't retain them. I guess you didn't retain them. We took them from you, but that's not the violation. Doesn't the seizure kind of prove that they didn't violate that portion with which they're being charged?
Well, so if you go down the chain of thinking, the idea here is, there's nothing there. But the fact that they were seized by the federal government means that there are questions about what's going on here. And at state level, if there are questions about what's going on here, then the state election board gets to take over Fulton County elections and run it themselves. And they are pro-Trump, and so you can see where this is going.
Yeah, I guess so. Well, some of them may slip on the ice between now and then.
Reporter Greg Bluestein asks on Twitter, what are they looking for? What happens next? Why was Tulsi Gabbard there? What we know is not much.
Right. Yeah. I know, and I saw a lot of people saying, well, this is a dry run for something, and I can't imagine, like, why? Also, is Trump known for practicing dry running anything? I'm not certain I understood what that was supposed to be.
Pushing the envelope is a better description than dry run.
Yeah, I guess so.
If it works, it works.
Yeah. And I mean, I guess it does lay the ground. I recall this was where they wanted to target, and this was what they were trying to go after in late 2020 when Sidney Powell was still allowed in the Oval Office. And I guess she's back now. She's being rehabilitated. But they did throw her out of there briefly in December of 2020 when she advocated doing this, although the one additional step was she advocated seizing the voting machines. And then, of course, they got sued, and Fox got sued, and the voting machine people won a lot of money from him. But I guess if they return to that theme that we need the voting machines themselves, I assume they'll grab all these things and say this hasn't proven anything. So the evidence might be in the machines. And I do worry that they'll return for those machines like right when they need them for the election, and that will delay the results from Fulton County, and therefore they'll say they're cheating. And Republicans won 100% of the vote, things like that.
So the Atlantic spoke with election officials, Republican officials, for example. One Republican election official from Arizona said it's a 5-alarm fire. The most disturbing part for the people we spoke with, including officials who describe themselves as strictly apolitical.
Sure.
Brad Raffensperger types, who have spent careers resisting partisan pressure, was not just the feds seize state election records, as what the episode revealed about the relationship between justice, the intelligence community, and the president. 3 officials familiar with planning said it was planned in Washington.
Sure.
The president had publicly boasted last week while in Davos that election-related prosecutions were coming. In response
Davos doesn't want to hear that.
An FBI official described the characterizations of the current and former officials we spoke with as wrong almost entirely. It's not unusual for leadership to be on site for operations like this.
Yeah, though DNI, no.
Right.
All right. Still no answer for what she was doing there, except that she believes that Italian military satellites were used to do this. Which, by the way, I haven't seen them seize any Italian military satellites lately.
Oh, that's next.
I guess so.
Yeah. So, listen, there's all sorts of stories about what's going on in our various and sundry not so great organizations that the alphabet soup in Washington. This one in New York Times Magazine about Kash Patel, quotes, "You need leadership that believes in the nonpartisan independence of the agency," said David Sundberg, former assistant director in charge of the Washington field office. I said people in the FBI will follow the facts. We're waiting for that to happen. Blair Tolman, former supervisory special agent for the Public Corrections Squad. We're losing the ability for agents to conduct the work without fear or favor because the FBI won't protect you. Walter Giardina, former fraud agent.
Real agent investigating fraud.
A year inside Kash Patel's FBI, 45 current and former employees on the changes they say are undermining the agency and making America less safe. You can imagine. Wall Street Journal, classified whistleblower complaint about Tulsi Gabbard stalls within her agency. Congress hasn't seen the complaint, which was filed 8 months ago. with U.S. intelligence community's watchdog office. The Cloak and Dagger mystery, reminiscent of a Jean Le Carre, is swirling around the complaint, which is said to be locked in a safe. Disclosure of its contents could cause grave damage to national security, one official said. It also implicates another federal agency beyond Gabbard's and raises potential claims of executive privilege that may involve the White House. The complaint was filed last May with the intelligence community's inspector general. The letter, which was viewed by the Wall Street Journal, accused Gabbard's office of hindering the dissemination of the complaint to lawmakers by failing to provide necessary security guidance on how to do so. Gabbard said, this is all baseless and politically motivated, but the whistleblower's lawyer and Gabbard's office also disagreed on whether the inspector general had made any determinations. The inspector general said the office had determined specific allegations against Gabbard weren't credible, while it couldn't reach a determination on others. The lawyer said he was never informed that any determinations are reached at all. So what was she doing in Atlanta, in Fulton County, in looking at the operation that was designed by DOJ, which she doesn't run?
Trying to get another complaint?
Get these machines, and the answer is trying to get into Donald Trump's good graces again after Tulsi Gabbard, head of the Defense Agency, the Director of National Intelligence, which in Washington speak, DNI means do not invite, because nobody wants to deal with her, is trying to get back in her good graces, and that's why she's in Atlanta. So a whole bunch of stuff going on, whether it works, whether it doesn't work, unclear. Yeah.
All right. I mean, yeah, I guess that would probably do it. Like if there really is something to the whistleblower complaint, and Trump might say, what do I care? She was a Democrat anyway, so screw her, we'll throw her overboard. But if if she appears to be taking some kind of active role in at least just declaring she believes his cuckoo theory about Fulton County, I guess she figures that he might say, oh, well, in that case, she's still loyal. But if he gets it in his head that she's a liability, throw her overboard. He doesn't care what you've done for him lately. That's the difference with it. Most Republicans. Well, what have you done for me lately? You tell Donald Trump what you did for him lately. Well, so what? Thanks for doing it. Bye.
Right.
Zing. Crash.
Anyway, that's a story. That's what I got for today.
No Epstein?
It's up to you.
All right. Well, we can do that. There was another tranche of Epstein documents released, and I guess the one thing I can say for certain is I don't know what they were doing saying that they were delaying things because they still needed to do review work on them, because they didn't do any. And then they saw another round of 500,000 documents released, and then 250,000 snatched right back off the internet, but not before people could take pictures of them. I really don't know. Whoever's billing them for the time reviewing these things, that's an investigation. That's a whistleblower investigation all by itself. Someone's defrauding the government, telling people, yeah, I've been sorting these out. And in some cases, we're the beneficiary of it because they are, I guess, inadvertently releasing documents to say, sure, Donald Trump is a huge pervert and rapist.
Well, they took some of those down, but then they put them back.
What, with his name gone? Or no? The different color highlighting? Anything? What did they do?
And there is color highlighting. I have to send you one of those because I think it's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
So let's see if I can isolate this. This is from Blue Sky.
What color is the highlighting? Is it blue because of that? No.
There's because
I got to scroll down to the bottom.
Because it's from another app linking to Blue Sky. There's all this, like garbage text associated with it that I'm trying to clean up.
I'll be the judge of that.
Try clicking that and see if that'll take
Mark Chadburn. Okay. Yeah. I'm going to click on it. It looks like it'll be, well, we'll see how it works on my desktop, which doesn't have Blue Sky installed. But I'll have to get to that. All right. DOJ now removing some Epstein files. It has just released. I see them. There's a picture.
They have specific documents. The parts that are sexual, which you may or may not wish to read on the air, are in yellow.
It's all yellow.
And the parts in white name people like Bill Clinton, but are not in yellow. I see.
Okay. Maybe this is some people have done searches of the database and, presumably.
This is a complaint summary.
I see.
And a little bit of it's blacked out, but not much. And the complaint summary's on the left. Notable names are on the right.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay,
the guest list included Bill Clinton and Donald Trump.
All right.
That's in white.
Oh.
An unidentified female who was forced to perform oral sex is in yellow, as an example.
Okay. Well, yeah. There's a lot of that going on in this thing.
So Trump, yellow.
Yeah.
Clinton, white.
Trump brown,
yellow.
As it turns out. Yeah, there's some tape on that subject. Oh yeah, this consumed a great deal of the weekend, and I think rightly so. And I think people made I don't know where the highlighting necessarily comes from, but a lot of people searched Trump. Although somebody had a very good search idea. They said if you really want to get the juicy stuff, search tangentially. Stop searching Trump and start searching like bikini and stuff like that, and you'll find all the there's a lot of email traffic back and forth between a good dozen or so very prominent weirdos and Jeffrey Epstein, who for all of his supposed genius cannot speak, spell, or type. Apparently, he's having the monkeys are bashing the keyboard for him. It's very weird, to say the least. All right. I don't know. You want to sneak anything in there before
let's see. New approval poll from TIP. Trump approval poll for independent voters. Disapprove 54, approve 34. Aaron Blake points out how big was the Democratic upset in Texas this weekend. In the Trump area, the most Democrats have ever overperformed in a congressional special was 23 points, and this one was 31.
Oh, okay. So that's more then.
Yeah.
I can get
New
with
record
that.
Set.
Sure.
New record set.
Okay. All right. Well, I love breaking records, and so does Donald Trump. I would say you should go away and come back tomorrow, but you won't. I may say it anyway, or I'll hire someone else.
Go away and come back tomorrow.
And but how about Wednesday? If I can get a cameo of him saying, "Come back 2 days from now. You need extra time to work on this one."
I sent you a very important picture. So
Thank you.
Take a look at it.
I will take a look. All right, welcome back, everyone, to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Net Roots Radio. So during the break, I got to look at a story I had forgotten, but because it's Groundhog Day, I get to relive it, I guess. I have a still photo. The picture that he sent me is a still photo from. Now I've got YouTube video about it, but apparently, there's another groundhog. I mean, there are plenty of them, but the one they have in Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania, is the one that's said to be, the official one. But they've got one in Staten Island, which I find is interesting. Just, I don't know why they would do it. I guess that makes it interesting. And they have somebody who they dress up in a wacky costume, which I guess, I don't know. My experience with the Punxsutawney Groundhog Day festivities is zero beyond the movie Groundhog Day. And, with movies, you could be debating forever, well, how historically accurate is their portrayal of the Groundhog festivities? And I believe they took some poetic license with it. But they have somebody dressed up in a weird costume. So there's that. Anyway, I guess the event is notable for, in this photo, it becomes obvious how this happened. Bill de Blasio, when he was mayor of New York, visited the borough of Staten Island for their big Groundhog Day celebration, which I guess they now must have some new safety protocols involved, because Bill de Blasio dropped the groundhog. And Bill de Blasio is a tall guy, so this is like being dropped from the 14th floor of a high-rise building. And the groundhog fell on its head and died. I don't know that it died on the spot, but it was hospitalized extensively, I guess, and lingered and then eventually expired. I don't know, but I didn't realize that he had essentially killed the groundhog. And I guess it was such a big deal that I never heard of it. But it's a real thing. And Greg has also sent me, I'm laughing mostly because I was a personal enemy of this groundhog in particular, but I should be more gracious than that. Here is a video, though, remembering Staten Island Chuck 10 years later, New York City marks an important anniversary since the groundhog's tragic death. I don't know how long groundhogs like that typically live, but I guess a life cut short, at least by 1 day, anyway, statistically speaking. It's somewhere 1 day plus. And there's a whole video, and I don't know that it's an important video. It's important to Staten Island Chuck, but then again, he's dead, and he was a groundhog, and what's he really going to do about it? But there's a whole timeline of his fabulous life, including the entry of June 14th, 2023, during which de Blasio breaks his long silence about the groundhog incident in an interview with New York Magazine, saying he 100%, that's the quote, 100%, regrets it. And then there's more quotes. I go there and it's 7 a.m, which means my motor skills are not at their best. I put on these gloves. They're very heavy looking, thick leather protective gloves because groundhog, they got some claws and teeth. So he's got these very thick gloves on. And this is interesting. There's lots to this quote. And they're like, here's a groundhog. I'm like, what the F? That's funny. And he does not hold back. He says what he says. We can make it work, I guess, if we say, I'm like, what the fuck? Yeah, you know what I'm saying. Don't you have a little more coaching to go with this or whatever? It was idiocy. Why would you want an elected official to hold a groundhog? Well, that's a good question, just generally speaking. But dead is dead. And Staten Island Chuck, got the short end of the stick on that one. Anyway, there you go. Oh, well, the groundhog, it does say, here's the actual incident was February 2nd, 2009, which I guess means I'm looking at I was remembering Staten Island Chuck 10 years later. The date on this is February 1st, 2024. So, all right. Oh, okay. This is a very troubled groundhog. So, yes, it was in 2014 that Mayor Bill de Blasio failed to get a good grip on Charlotte. The groundhog chosen to play the role of Staten Island Chuck. So it's like the Dread Pirate Roberts, you see. Chuck was long since dead. They had Charlotte. De Blasio dropped Charlotte. Charlotte wriggled out of his grasp and tumbled headfirst to the ground. A week later, the seasonal oracle was found dead in her enclosure. The cause, acute internal injuries. To be fair, de Blasio was a mayor, not a zookeeper. Right? I'm a mayor, damn it, not a zookeeper. If this is after Dr. McCoy retires from Starfleet, he becomes mayor of... Does he have a well-known hometown? I'm sure in Star Trek canon, everybody knows where Dr. McCoy is from. But he could have become mayor of another planet, so I'm not sure. I'm a mayor, not a zookeeper. And he was wearing unwieldy gloves to protect his hands after a previous Chuck, this is what the first entry is, bit then Mayor Mike Bloomberg. So did they bite him and he didn't have gloves at the time? That's wild. The current mayor, Eric Adams, this is last year's article, an avowed enemy of rodents, has skipped the Groundhog Day celebrations. As we remember and honor Charlotte, who had the misfortune of being chosen to play Staten Island Chuck on that fateful day, here is a timeline of how her death has impacted New York City. At this point we say, I don't care. You can have a link. How about that? So there you go. But biting Mike Bloomberg, dangerous. I mean, for both, really. But anyway, I'm no big fan of Mike Bloomberg. Were they saying that the gloves were an innovation that came after a mayor got bitten? That's astonishing, quite honestly. Okay, but not as astonishing as the rest of the things that I have in Instapaper for you. Almost assuredly not, which we won't be able to get to across the board. But I did promise you this one. All right, what are we looking at here? A blog style entry from Dara's Guide to Handling Reality. I don't know Dara, but you can find, I guess, the blog. Can you find it here? DearDara.com. I don't know. I mean, there's some stuff after that, but I'm wondering whether, I just want to make sure that if you type in DearDerek.com, you'll get there. You will. You'll get to her webpage anyway, and then you'll find out it is Dara Moskowitz Grumdahl? Not certain how she pronounces it. A writer with an exclamation point afterward. That's how much of a writer she is. Lists her books, her essays, her awards, her teaching. I mean, she's an accomplished writer. There's even reviews from people who are famous and know what they're talking about. So that's pretty good. And she's written an excellent essay here. I can only vouch for the one. I liked it. I'm reading it to you. Dara's Guide to Handling Reality, maybe a blog that resides on her website. And I guess she's also in Minneapolis, which would give you some good material if it wasn't for, and you'd be happy about that if it wasn't for the fact that the situation is so terrible. Like I was trapped in a ghetto in World War II. I have good material. I have good news and bad news. Good news is I have great material for an essay. Bad news is it's a personal account of being stuck in a ghetto in World War II. Yeah. All right. Well, I guess that was, Anne Frank, great material, but I'd trade it all for, right. Okay. So Minneapolis, she's writing inside I told you she has some good terminology for it, inside the economic blockade zone, where we are pioneering nonviolence, whistle edition. Not addition, but edition. It should be interesting to say the least. And I don't know whether she's the one who's adopted the economic blockade zone, or it's possible. I'm not really sure about this, and we'll see whether the essay addresses it at all. I don't recall it. But I wouldn't be surprised if the Trump administration was calling it an economic blockade zone, though I could also see them saying our true aim here is an economic blockade. As I was reading the story and realizing that that's what was really going on, I did think it was possible that somewhere Stephen Miller is out there saying, listen, I'm not too worried about the resistance and whether or not ICE and Border Patrol are in fact successful in kidnapping enough brown people. That's kind of interesting to me. Like, I like that if they do that. But what I'm really there to do is to impose an economic blockade to punish the people who I think, for instance, voted in favor of or keep politicians in office who declare sanctuary city status. And I would like to conduct it. What I'm truly about here is I want to conduct an operation that's so odious and so clearly illegal and dangerous and anti-American that it forces the local populace to come out in ways that essentially shutter the business district of this city and let them think they're winning the battle by forcing us to, stop trying to snatch people off the street. If they catch us and they film us and they blow the whistles and they start yelling at us, we may give up on the fight, the one fight for this one individual, and walk away. And I'm fine with that. I don't care about that. What I'm really looking to do is punish the city with a siege. And that could be true. And maybe we need to factor that into as we now consider whether or not Minneapolis is the model for resisting should the center, the locus of operations move to another city. There's a lot to take away from it that I think is positive and helpful. And if the goal is, well, okay, we lost out economically, but we saved the people, then fine. But it'll be up to each city to determine how they want to do this. But yeah, I mean, now I guess at a minimum, you want to keep in mind, if what they're really trying to do is punish us economically, we need to maybe also give some attention to finding ways to mitigate that impact. Anyway, to inform your thinking about that, Dara's Guide to Handling Reality, where she writes about what's going on and the economic siege. Hi, she begins. Greetings from inside the economic blockade zone of occupied Minneapolis. What do you know about cities inside economic blockades? I know about the Prussian siege of Paris, when the trapped Parisians had to eat their zoo elephants. Yikes. I know about the Dutch hunger winter when the Nazis were, as ever, acting like Nazis. They did. The actual Nazis definitely did do that. And starving babies and everyone. But here's what an economic blockade looks like in a 21st century American city. It looks like ABC News reports that economic activity is down 80% in parts of the city, which seems right to me. And I could see people saying that's a fair trade for protecting our neighbors. But I could also see Stephen Miller type saying, standing in the back, yes, excellent. This is what I was after initially. And if, brown people were hurt, deported, or died in the meantime, well, that would be so much the better for him. Everywhere on the main city drags of restaurants, barbershops, coffee shops, little boutiques, storefronts are eerily dark. The cars and street life are just gone. Everything feels like Christmas morning, full ghost town. I guess Christmas morning without the happy. Anyway, where are the people? Or rather, where are the people? Of course, they're being snatched up and sent to Texas on their way to being deported. But where there are people, the doors are locked and the people inside are on edge. Standing outside a locked and empty restaurant at twilight, I tapped on the glass. Scared faces of women came close to the other side. "Do you have a reservation?" shouted the shortest one with the long, pretty hair. Not a soul in her restaurant, and she was terrified of her customers. That's bad. Standing outside a completely different locked restaurant, the host's fear came across as hostility. "What do you want?" she shouted through the locked door, prompting one of her coworkers to rush to us and the angry woman to flee to the kitchen. One of their coworkers had been dragged across the ice by ICE, kicked and pummeled, and ultimately carried away, only to be released 12 hours later with no charges, as ICE here routinely does, secret police / criminal gang style. No warrant, no charges, just capricious, arbitrary and capricious, just capricious face-breaking violence. That's going to affect the outcome of marginal elections, even in Texas, when that's happening on TV. Did you hear the one about the St. Paul roofer who was brought to the big public hospital with 8 skull fractures and a broken face, and ICE told the nurses he did it himself, running into a brick wall, as people frequently do? All over my neighborhood, we keep finding empty cars. We hear a lot about this. The glass shattered into diamonds on the snow. The people missing. Tiny, private, automotive Kristallnachts everywhere and ongoing. I talked to a restaurant owner today who told me he's 6 weeks from going under. I've been hearing stories of people working 100 hours, clocking in as themselves, and then ending the shift and immediately clocking in as their coworker because the coworker has to eat and pay rent and the business might close otherwise. But they can't show up for work for fear of being snatched off the street, I guess is the subtext here. I know a chef who spends an hour on either side of his work driving all his legal, not that that matters, employees to and from work because otherwise they might get rammed by a truck of ICE agents and their car windows shattered and a car abandoned and eventually towed. This happens so much that the city has a policy to waive tow and storage fees for those cars. Then they get beat up and detained for days in inhumane conditions at the Whipple building where their wallets and phones are stolen. And we've already seen stories of ICE agents and Border Patrol agents selling those phones where there are kiosks. You can get cash for a phone. And, sell it. Might as well pocket the cash. Anyway, then their families have to put a retainer on an attorney, and they get put on a plane to Texas where their detention continues. Finally, they're shoved out the door in Texas. No coat, no ID, no money, no phone, and have to try to make their own way home. Who is going to get in a car and go to work when that may await? And ice is everywhere, everywhere, everywhere. On my block 3 times that I know of just this week. On Monday morning, 8:40, I walked outside, coffee in one hand, mind on getting the kid to the bus stop. Ice is 3 doors down. A caravan of SUVs blocking traffic. Agents up on the stoop of a neighbor's house. I pull the whistle from my pocket, the phone from my pocket. I start to blow my whistle and blow, 2 feet planted firmly on the ice of the rutted pavement beneath my feet, and nothing. Quiet street. I'm whistling and whistling and whistling, and ice drives away, and I see a little 4-door sedan with 2 young women in medical masks trailing behind them bravely. The newspapers, where people earn 3 and 7 and 20 times what I do, published the news of the day on Monday. Bovino was leaving. The occupation was easing. We were at a pivot. I'll believe it when I see it, I thought. On Tuesday morning, brutal cold, I heard the sound of ice whistles from my warm bed. The sky still black. By the time I got up and peered out from behind the blackout curtains, everyone was gone. Then I heard the ice whistles while I was brushing my teeth. By the time I got to the front windows, gone. Pivot, said the writers of wealthy coastal papers, and they brought sophisticated analyses with experts weighing in on what caused the pivot. There is no pivot. I'll believe it when I see it, I thought. Thursday morning, coffee in hand, 12 below. I headed out my front door to take the kid to the bus stop, and it was like that scene in Men in Black where Will Smith is training to use his gun and the targets pop up, and he has to make sense of what's going on and be the good guy when everything is happening as fast as can be. People standing everywhere, civilian-looking people, but out of place. 1 on a stoop and 2 on a corner and 4 motionless on a sidewalk, and down the block the reflective vests of the volunteers in pairs walking the school patrol to keep the kids from the K through 5 safe from ice. Also 3 cars idling in front of my house. I tried to make sense of the crowd and walked toward my own car. 2 women in a small idling sedan, and the driver rolled down her window. "That's ice," she said. "No whistles." It took me a minute. "Whose ice?" She gestured again. "A Latino-looking guy in a silver Wagoneer, idling." I started my car. It needed to warm up. I'm a mom trying to take my kid to the bus stop because it's 20 below with wind chill. And she's got to get to AP statistics. For real, people are having to keep up with AP statistics and all of this. A guy was behind my car, an African immigrant I know from the neighborhood, warming up his car, scrolling his phone. Then I notice a woman I've known for 20 years in a furry hat, weeping on a snowbank. What is going on? I went to her. "I finally broke. I haven't cried in all of this. I finally broke," she said. She's a birder. She saw a hawk in the tree of the beautiful old elm across the street from my house, the elm that miraculously survived Dutch elm disease, the one that turns the brightest mustard yellow in the fall and provides the preferred perch for sharp-shinned hawks and red-tailed hawks who come to hunt the mice in our local apartment building dumpsters. She saw a bird and wanted to tell someone, but when she looked down, she saw armed federal goons, not people who cared about birds. I hugged her. I invited her inside. I was now on the snowbank, too. She didn't want to come inside. She filled me in. The ICE agent was staking out the bus stop on the corner, the kids' school bus stop, the same one my own kid used to wait at, stomping their feet in the cold, looking with me through my phone at the constellations on the stars above, That's Orion's belt. Do you see the 3 little... Who's Orion? Well, that's a good question. The ICE agent was also staking out the sidewalks to grab anyone walking to the school for kindergarten through 5th grade on the corner. He found the perfect spot to stalk little kids going to different schools right in front of my house. This HuffPo story is pretty spot on. ICE is circling schools, looking for anyone that they think looks brown or black or frightened. Brown, black, speaking with an accent, or frightened are the only criteria you need for a Kavanaugh stop after the beer-drinking credibly accused sexual assaulter changed America's definition of reasonable search and seizure to any hunch in the mind of a masked armed goon. I tapped on the driver's side window of my African neighbor, idling and scrolling in his car. "That's ICE," I said. "What's ICE?" he answered. I pointed. "Oh, God," he exclaimed, because suddenly he found himself in the trap. If you try to get away from them, that's reason for them to chase you. That's a Kavanaugh stop. If only Kavanaugh had been stopped by all the women who wanted that bad judgment sex pest crybaby stopped. And then the dear daughter came out of the house, her shoelaces flapping, and I introduced her to my weeping friend, and then a low-flying helicopter came through, and I said, "Helicopters, always with the helicopters. They're driving me insane," said my friend. "I can feel them in my teeth. It's endless," I replied. And then I kind of lost it too. Driving off, ICE in my rearview mirror. "I don't know what I'm supposed to do," I gasped. So I took dear daughter all the way to school, and then I had to take a walk in the icy woods to calm myself down. And the problem is that the major news platforms treat Trump like they're watching a circus on television, and it's their job to sum it up for a completely stone-blind audience. Now he's going over that way. Now he's going over that way. And there are people in sequins to meet him. And now he says there's a drawdown. And now he says pivot. And now he's going over that way again. I got 5 rejections by major outlets this week from editors who had too much Minneapolis. But I think they meant, it's over. There's been a pivot. We read the headlines. When it's not over at all. The economic blockade is just setting its teeth in. ICE is outside my house whenever the school buses run. The city is starting to feel a lot like it did during COVID. The big box stores in the suburbs are open. The small businesses in the walkable streets are locked up. ICE was in Powderhorn Park this morning throwing tear gas where we used to do family pottery, and the kids would smoosh clay into lumpy, adorable cups. I talked to a restaurant owner today who said no one wants to come out. Everyone's using all their money for other people's groceries and all their time for delivering them. What happens next with wedding season and patio season and all the economic choices we all make from a choice to go outside? Traditionally, there are a few businesses in, quote, bad neighborhoods. People don't choose to go places where they will encounter violence. What happens to the funding for buses and light rail when people are afraid to ride them and no one buys bus tickets? What happens to the funding for our schools when the kids are hiding or have fled? What happens to our car insurance, our car repairs? Is there even any car window glass left around here? How will this economic blockade progress or reverberate or whatever the right word is if these armed goons continue to roam around like thugs, randomly attacking? And I guess the next question, the sun is going to rise in 8 hours as I type this to you. What are the odds that ICE is going to be feet from my front step again? And when Megyn Kelly said, "Do you know why I wasn't shot by Border Patrol this weekend? Because I kept my ass inside and out of their operations. It's very simple." Did she have any idea that you could walk into them twice in a week by opening your front door? And nothing about this is simple at all. Sending love. Thanks for being out there through this. P.S. The photo up top is the poster now of both Renee Good and Alex Preddy, and they're all over town. The second photo, you'll have to take a look at it yourself, of course, is a woman painting a painting of Alex Preddy at the site of his death. And by the way, this is not part of the article, but it's an important addition to it, the postscript. If you'd like to support me in these emotionally difficult emails, you can buy me a coffee because and it sort of trails off there, and that's about it. And so you can find her, I guess, not only at deardara.com, but find a way to support her work there. And I guess that's important, particularly during an economic blockade, which, is problematic all by itself for a number of reasons. All right. I wanted to put that out there, and I think that's the right framing, economic blockade. It reminded me of about 10 different things that I may or may not have links set aside for, but that I might have to dig up. And now I got to go. I'm going to have to spend the 2 minutes of the break combing back through it and saying, oh yeah, what was it I meant to bring up? I wanted to write notes to myself along the way, but then I would have gotten lost in the reading. But there's lots happening that it reminded me of. And, well, we'll see if I can't discern what they were and put them on the agenda for our last segment. All right. I don't know. It's a rough way to get through it, but important notes from inside. Thank you very much, Dara. Hi, everybody. It's me, David, still your host for the Kagro in the Morning Show after all these years. Thank you for all your continuing support for the show. And if you're listening regularly and still thinking about getting on board as a supporter, well, the time is now. Patreon.com is the easiest way to make recurring subscription-style payments every month, all year round, to keep us going. patreon.com/KagroX brings you to our page where you can sign up with your monthly support. And hey, have you seen our clever new subscription tiers? It's easier than ever to sign up for, say, one crisp dollar bill for every information-packed 2-hour show. If you're the plan ahead type, there's even a year-long subscription program that saves you 15% on the cover price. Or it would if there was a cover price, or even a cover, for that matter. patreon.com/KAGROX. Thanks again for all your support. All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. Combing through it, I can see where some of the things I think I wanted to get to are, and I wanted to at least raise this point. I was just watching all of the photos and video coming out of Minneapolis and elsewhere where there are protests going on, protests, popping up everywhere across the country, of course, in solidarity with Minneapolis, or in some cases getting set to resist ICE in new operations around the country. And it occurred to me as I was watching, I think I saw photos coming out of Portland, Oregon, where they're constantly harassing protesters or people who might later become protesters if there's no protests going on. But usually there are some. But the amount of smoke and gas that are being routinely deployed there, and I think it was out of Portland that a widely circulated video of a rather unnecessary, and they're all sort of unnecessary, but this one was, I guess extremely unnecessary, release of tear gas and chemical irritants that caught a lot of children at or nearby the protest, because it was meant to be a very low-key, peaceful protest, and the kids were brought because it was meant to be that way. And apparently the story out of Portland was that the organizers were extremely careful to coach people to protest in a manner that would not trip any of the traditional tripwires for ICE and Border Patrol and other federal authorities to do things like deploy chemical irritants, including training everybody as they were marching, I think past the detention center there, that they could slow their gait as they passed in front of the federal facilities. But if they stopped, that would be something that would trigger the federal authorities sent there to, guard and protect federal installations to start firing on them. So don't do that. And then, of course, because we don't anticipate any of that sort of trouble, and to signal that we don't anticipate any trouble of that sort, we've got our kids with us, because why not? They have the right to protest too. But anyway, they did all of those things. But guess what? They decided to tear gas them anyway, because we had the tear gas and there's no controls over it. And that's really the issue. And one of the things, and I know at a time when everybody says, well, I want ICE abolished and dismantled, so putting restrictions on their operations isn't enough. But maybe you should at least you could also put that in the way and say every federal authority who's dispatched anywhere for crowd control, you really have to realize there need to be regulations and restrictions, and there aren't. And as a result, we've got chaos, and it's just going to lead to more chaos. Like if you, as as a law enforcement officer, or a fake law enforcement officer even, in the federal government, or even a real one, if you fire your gun at somebody, there's all kinds of paperwork that goes along with that, because it's deadly. It's deadly force. Whether you hit anybody or not, there's paperwork involved. How many shots did you fire? What happened to them? Why did you do it? What was the justification? All of this. And I think police officers locally, all the way up to real or fake law enforcement officers in the federal level, have sort of been provided with, well, we want fewer shooting deaths, but we still want to be able to do the police mission. So here is less lethal technology to use. And I mean, it can also be lethal depending on how you use it and depending on what the situation is, but it's not meant to be. But I think that they've gotten used to this idea of this is freebies. This is stuff we can deploy without either having to worry about killing people or doing any paperwork. And it's gotten to the point where ICE Border Patrol types are roaming Minneapolis and elsewhere and deploying these things out the window of cars where there's no danger of anything happening. They're not even stopped. They just see people who are protesting and say, wouldn't it be funny to squirt them in the face with bear spray from 20 feet away as we drive by? Ha ha. And I don't have to write up any paperwork on it. I've sprayed chemical irritants into people's eyeballs and they may be injured. They're certainly being we're certainly inflicting pain on them for no particular reason, but I don't have to answer to anybody about that because it's not a gun. It's non-lethal or whatever. And so I think it tends to lead to abuse. But one of the other things is I was looking at this picture of this smoke and gas being released in Portland and thinking, that could be anything. But mostly we think, well, it's smoke or tear gas, and as bad as tear gas is, some people have gas masks, which they've bought at local stores, in case people wonder where they come from, or Amazon for that matter. But at worst, they think, okay, well, I've seen also some interesting stuff on social media and blogs printing up a guide to the chemicals being deployed by these guys. And this canister is this stuff, and this canister is that stuff, and this one's worse than that one. But it all basically goes up. The scale goes to like really bad tear gas that you're not supposed to use in anything but a super emergency situation. And it is maybe on top of being a chemical irritant and tear gas is also corrosive and carcinogenic if you are exposed to it for long enough. But it'll, I guess, damage paint on cars and obviously if you don't wash it off, hurt you. Physically, burn your skin, burn your eyes. But no one thinks it's anything worse than that. Like, I guess when the gas canisters and the smoke canisters go off, nobody says, put on your gas mask because it might be chlorine gas or it might be nerve agents or anything like that. Nobody says that. And it occurs to me that the reason that nobody says that or nobody worries about that is because we have certain expectations of our government. And I'm not 100% sure we are entitled to make these assumptions anymore. We say that, we trust that this is not chlorine gas or some other kind of poison because of course it isn't. Our federal government agents aren't that crazy. They aren't going to just do this. They're not going to use that stuff either on purpose or by accident, right? Oops, I deployed the wrong canister of gas. Well, because the supply chain is not going to give them a canister of sarin gas. There are probably no canisters of sarin gas like that or whatever, chlorine gas. We don't make them, right? I think, right? So it's not going to be on purpose that they were distributed or even by accident. But we're accustomed to believing that our government agents are competent and will know the difference between the canisters, or that our supply chain is competent and won't send any of those canisters accidentally into circulation, or create any of those canisters for that matter, and that our government agents are accountable. And if you were to somehow there would be an investigation and we get to the bottom of this outrageous abuse of human rights, or God help us, deaths caused by this stuff that was accidentally or purposefully or was sabotaged. And I don't know what would lead to something like this. But if it did, there would be an investigation and we'd get to the bottom of it. And of course, it wouldn't be done on purpose because our federal officers are sworn against the kind of nihilistic barbarism it would take to be the kind of person who would say, I will use this stuff by accident or otherwise. I'll even have it, or I won't even look at what I'm deploying. I just grab a canister and throw it. I figured it was tear gas because that's what they usually give us. But does anybody check to see what they're throwing? Probably not. Probably because they figure no one would ever do something like that. Even they think no one would ever do something like that. But it doesn't have to be one of them deciding to do something like that. The cover of that sort of chaos and smoke and the deployment of gas is perfect cover for God knows what. One of these Atomwaffen wackadoodles, if they really exist, ends up in ice. Why not? They already got the mask, right? A Patriot Front person, an actual ISIS or Al-Qaeda terrorist who decides to show up in there and put a mask on and pretend he's ICE or Border Patrol, or a protester for that matter, and release some homemade chemical weapon. It could be anything. It could be on purpose. It could be by accident. It could be a terrorist. It could be a domestic terrorist who got a job legitimately with Border Patrol and decided to use it as cover to release poison gas and say, nobody knew how that got there. And I mean, you know that the Trump administration would be telling you, Antifa did it. I knew they were going to do it. They're domestic terrorists, just like we said. If they found out definitively that it was, in fact, an overseas ISIS-style terrorist, they would probably still tell you. They can't tell you we let an ISIS terrorist infiltrate the Border Patrol or infiltrate the country at all. But they can tell you Antifa did it to make us look bad. And no one would believe it, but they'll tell you that anyway. That's the problem. There's no accountability. There's no trust. There's no reason in the world for anybody at this point to believe that the results of any so-called investigation of an incident, should that happen, God forbid, would be correct, accurate, and honest. And no one would believe it because they'd tell you something dumb like Antifa did it. And, you know, that's just not the case. They don't have the capacity and nor the desire to do anything like that. People who do, well, they do exist on the other side, as it turns out. But this is one of the many reasons why the routine deployment of chemical agents for mere crowd control or just I feel like it and I thought it would be funny and I have lots of it should be discouraged domestically, internationally, and everywhere. And is, in fact, discouraged by the rules of war everywhere. And we now, of course, know that the Trump administration thinks rules of war are dumb and gay, or whatever it is they say. And it's, in fact, what they say among right-wing influencers. And we shouldn't be bound by them. But to the extent that we are, well, clearly we're not going to be doing that stuff at home here domestically. And our powers that be that deploy these forces, whether they be civilian forces or military, are not going to let this happen. But then again, as I pointed out a week or so ago, these are the same clowns who gave zero thought to the implication of putting a loot box vending machine inside the Pentagon. And we're still waiting to see whether that thing returns or what the extra protocols might be for dealing with the idea of, yes, we're going to let some outside contractor just bring sealed mystery packages in here. That, by the way, did you realize how much it costs to buy something out of this mystery box? $100. Who's doing that in the Pentagon? And of course, like I said, could be anything in those boxes. Probably not explosive. I assume that they would detect that on the way in the door somehow, but maybe not. But if it's a listening device, an RFID chip, that's all it really takes. I don't know who's going to buy it, but let's find out where they go and who they are. And I guess if we see that it's parked inside of the certain, they have the divisions, the rings of the Pentagon, will tell you something about if you know where location they are in their office that they spend most of their time in, a little something about what they do. And if they take it home with them, you know where they live and you know their route to work. It's super dangerous. And these are the guys in charge of, everything, because everything's integrated in the Trump administration. I'm a little worried that in the chaos, and if they try to dismiss it as well as the fog of war. I didn't mean to deploy mustard gas in the middle of this stuff, but I didn't know. Somebody gave me a canister. What do I know? I don't know how to read. I threw it. And who's going to be able to prove that that's not the case? Even if it's just a cover story for a person who decided to do it because they're a crazy-ass terrorist. I'm a little worried about this. But it's bad enough reporting on reality. So I'll switch gears and focus on that. And I'll have to just pick one at random. There was 1 million Epstein developments over the weekend. I'm going to wait. You probably know what they are. You probably followed them online. We'll talk about them. We'll give them some more context, I suppose, later on in the week, almost certainly. There are other stories, blockbuster stories. Like, for instance, one I won't cover, but I do have handy, the Wall Street Journal's big bombshell over the weekend. Paywalled, of course, as is the New York Times work on it, but I can get by their paywall because I actually pay them, but I probably shouldn't. Spy Sheik, you saw this one? The Spy Sheik bought secret stake in Trump company. Long story short there, one of the Abu Dhabi royalty, apparently secretly up until this point, bought 49% of World Liberty Financial, apparently, like the crypto scam Trump company, and just, yeah, sure. So what's that? And I think they spent like $500 million on it, by the way. So $500 million from UAE, the $400 million plane from Qatar. And again, I ask, by the way, how are we doing on refurbishing that thing? $2 billion to Jared Kushner and friends from the Saudish Sovereign Wealth Fund right after the first term. Just like billions of dollars pouring in from these very concentrated location of the Arabian Peninsula. And of course, all going into the pocket of the guy who makes Middle Eastern policy. But we'll spend time on that later. Instead, I wanted to spend some time back in the courts. Judge Boasberg is back in the news. And so important follow-up there, which one should I bring you? I'll bring you, maybe we'll go to Steve Vladeck on this. But just so you get a quick overview of what's happened here, do you remember Judge Boasberg, the chief, I believe, of the district court in D.C., who spoke to Justice Roberts, Chief Justice Roberts, in his capacity, Roberts' capacity as head of the U.S. Judicial Conference, and had said to him at some point, some months ago at this point, hey, we're having a real problem here. We're facing a real crisis. The Trump administration is kind of routinely ignoring our orders from the courts at all levels. But court orders are being ignored, opinions rendered and ignored as well, and all sorts of insane legal games and even extra legal games being played by the administration. We got to think about what are we going to do here if they just stop following the court's guidance. This is a proper, the only perhaps proper venue for discussion among members of the federal bench of this topic. And that the DOJ said, you're implying that the administration doesn't believe in the rule of law, which, I'm not implying it. I'm telling you that that's the case. But But that itself is an undermining of the rule of law, and we therefore are going to charge you with judicial misconduct. You remember how crazy that was, but that they actually did that? They did, in fact, file a complaint. And guess what? They have an answer now. You'll never believe it, but the answer is no, that's stupid. Get the F out of here. Your complaint is dismissed. Steve Vladeck posted this on Blue Sky the other day. We finally know what happened to DOJ's, parenthetically he says, frivolous, and it is frivolous, misconduct complaint against Chief Judge Boasberg. It was transferred by Chief Justice Roberts from the D.C. Circuit. Remember, Boasberg is the chief of the Federal District Court in D.C., the initial trial level court where everything happens if you're charged with a federal crime. The trial takes place there. If there is an appeal from your trial, it goes to the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals, and from thence, presumably, if there is a real case, to the Supreme Court. Just as there are circuit courts everywhere, D.C. has its own. And ordinarily, when you file a complaint like that, it would be reviewed in that circuit by your immediate superiors, essentially. If he's the district court, the circuit court is going to take a look at that. And in this case, Chief Justice Roberts transferred it out of the D.C. Circuit and sent it to, I don't know whether it was a random choice, the 6th Circuit, Chief Judge Jeff Sutton assigned to take a look at it, because there were, all the parties to the complaint all have ongoing litigation in the D.C. Circuit, and D.C. Circuit would be reviewing all of this. It makes sense to send it outside. And, that may even be a routine thing if it's a misconduct against a district court judge. You know what? They're always reviewing the district court judge's work in this circuit. Let's get another circuit to look at it. Well, Chief Judge Sutton over in the 6th District dismissed the thing in a, as he puts, as Steve Vladeck says, rather direct memorandum and order just 2 weeks later. And we got a link to the order, but let me read on with Vladeck's posts on Blue Sky to see if we can long story short it. And for those asking how and why Roberts got involved, the order explains that the Chief Judge of the D.C. Circuit asked the Chief Justice to transfer the complaint to another circuit because it relates to ongoing litigation in the D.C. Circuit. Or, in other words, this was done totally by the book. And so was the transfer. And anyway, this too, for more background, Vladeck adds the old posts from Pam Bondi saying, today at my direction, the Justice Department filed a misconduct complaint against Boasberg for making improper comments about President Trump and his administration. These comments have undermined the integrity of the judiciary, and we will not stand for that. Well, guess what? The 6th Circuit's chief judge also won't stand for your nonsense about it. And here we are. So the order is here, and it's a lengthy-ish order if you wanted to read all of it. But, maybe it's better that we find and see if Steve Vladeck has summarized it anywhere. But in case you were wondering, where is the 6th Circuit? They helpfully point out that is Michigan, Ohio, Kentucky, and Tennessee. And to give you the opening of it anyway, the order says this complaint of judicial misconduct was filed by Chad Mizell, then the Chief of Staff to the Attorney General of the United States, on behalf of the Department of Justice against the Honorable James E. Boasberg, Chief Judge of the United States District Court for the District of Columbia, under 28 U.S. Code Section 351. Chad Mizell, I think, had a hell of a weekend, too, as he was out basically telling every subscriber of X, hey, you want to join ICE? Hey, or even better, you want to be a U.S. attorney? We're short on U.S. attorneys and assistant U.S. attorneys all over the country. DM me if you're interested. Wow, that'll be good. Anyway, the order goes on. The gist of the complaint is that the subject judge violated several canons of the Code of Conduct for United States judges based on the comment he made at a semi-annual meeting of the Judicial Conference of the United States, and based on actions that he took in presiding over a case involving the Department of Justice. Before turning to the specific allegations in the complaint, it is worth briefly describing the work of the Judicial Conference and the underlying litigation. So maybe for your edification, we'll read on there. The Judicial Conference of the United States is the policy-making body of the federal judiciary and has served in that role for more than a century. It has 27 members. The Chief Justice of the United States, the 13 chief judges of the Federal Circuit Courts of Appeals, 12 district court judges selected from each of the regional circuit courts, and the chief judge of the Court of International Trade. Got it? That's according to law, 28 U.S. Code 3, Section 331. The conference promotes the uniformity of management procedures and the expeditious conduct of court business, oversees the operation and effect of the general rules of practice and procedure that govern federal cases, and supervises and oversees the budget, security matters, personnel, and other policy-making imperatives of the third branch. The conference meets twice a year, and the Chief Justice presides over each meeting. By statute, the Chief Justice invites the Attorney General of the United States to speak at the conference, including with particular reference to cases to which the United States is a party. By custom, he invites leaders of Congress to make presentations about issues of common interest to the legislative and judicial branches. And by custom, he invites other leaders of the federal judiciary to make presentations about a variety of topics affecting the federal courts. Before and after the judicial conference, the members of the conference and other leaders of the federal judiciary meet to address matters of concern to the judicial branch, chiefly involving judicial administration. After each meeting of the conference, the Administrative Office of the United States Courts makes public some of the formal actions taken by the conference, as well as some of the topics covered during the conference. Otherwise, the closed-door discussions during the conference and other meetings are off the record and confidential. As for the underlying litigation, it began with a lawsuit filed before the subject judge on March 15, 2025. The plaintiffs are detained individuals allegedly affiliated with the foreign terrorist organization Tren de Aragua, who seek to prevent the federal government from removing them to another country under the Alien Enemies Act. You know that. On March 15th, the judge issued 2 temporary restraining orders that halted 1. Attempts to remove the plaintiffs, an order on the motion for the TRO, and 2, attempts to remove preliminarily certified class members, according to a separate order. The United States Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia Circuit declined the government's emergency request to stay those orders later in March. 2 days later, the judge extended the orders for an additional 14 days. On April 7th, in response to a request for emergency relief by the Department of Justice, believe it or not, the United States Supreme Court vacated the judge's temporary restraining orders. On April 16th, the judge concluded that probable cause exists to find the government in criminal contempt for failing to comply with the March 15th oral and written restraining orders, and provided the government an opportunity to purge such contempt. The government appealed and requested a writ of mandamus requiring the judge to end the contempt proceedings. Actually, that's happening in parallel right now in Minnesota with Judge Schiltz, right? Same actual playing out, same way it plays out, that while they are reviewing things, they hit them with a mandamus order. Right in the middle of it all. The D.C. Circuit administratively stayed the contempt order on April 18th. On August 8th, a panel of the D.C. Circuit dismissed the government's appeal, partially granted a writ of mandamus, and vacated the probable cause order. So now we're into November, when the D.C. Circuit declined to grant en banc review of the mandamus filing. They wanted even more. They weren't happy with the partial. November 24th, the judge initiated a new contempt proceeding and requested declarations from the government by December 5th and scheduled a hearing for December 15th. Again, just what like Schiltz is doing in Minneapolis. On December 12th, the D.C. Circuit granted the department's request to stay the contempt proceeding. So the government is getting all sorts of breaks in all of this. and stays of the orders. But that brings us to the complaint of judicial misconduct. We haven't even gotten there yet, and hey, it's almost time for me to leave. On July 29th, 2025, the Department of Justice filed the complaint against Judge Boasberg with the Judicial Council of the D.C. Circuit. The complaint focuses on a statement the judge allegedly made during the judicial conference on March 11th, 2025. And according to that complaint, the judge, who is a member of the judicial conference, expressed, quote, concerns to other members of the conference that the administration would disregard rulings of federal courts, leading to a constitutional crisis. In the weeks that followed the alleged statement, according to the complaint, the judge made several rulings in the underlying litigation that demonstrated the judge's hostility toward the administration. The complaint maintains that the judge's comments at the judicial conference and his actions in the underlying litigation violate 3 canons of the Code of Conduct for the United States judges. They are listed here. We, of course, don't have enough time to read them, but I think we summarized them before. And on November 26, in view of several appellate challenges to the judge's rulings in the underlying case and of concerns that the judges on the D.C. Circuit might have to recuse themselves from any proceedings before the Judicial Council, Chief Judge Srinivasan asked Chief Justice Roberts to transfer the judicial misconduct proceedings to another circuit. It went, as you know, to the 6th Circuit. Why the 6th, that I don't know. But again, here we're out of time. Long story short, the 6th Circuit says, this is stupid. Get the F out of our courtroom. That's where we are with this stuff. And now we watch the DOJ try to find a new way to harass Boasberg.
You have been listening to Kagro in the Morning with David Waldman.
All right, time is up here. Of course, time to hand things over to Justice Putnam for the West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. We'll get back to this topic. We'll find more analysis about exactly what happened to straighten this out. Just wanted to remind you of the background because we're going to be talking about this for weeks to come, I am sure. Time now for Justice to take the reins and bring you around the country and around the world. We'll be back and see you tomorrow.